Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with a PB&J card class featuring some more holiday inspiration. And here's a look at the card we'll be creating today. And for this card, believe it or not, it is all die cutting. There is no inking and no stamping. And I have to say, I had so much fun creating this card and was really happy with the finished result, the dimension, the cardstock. It just turned out beautiful. I wish you could see it in real life. It's just even prettier when you have that dimension right up close. So real quick before we get started, here's a list of all the supplies that I'll be using on this card, including the exact colors of cardstock and the dies that I'm using. And I will put this back up on screen at the very end of the video. So if you want to look at it in more detailed, you can just hit pause at that time and check it out. So the first die I'm using on this card is our Snowflake stitch frame. This is a penny black die. And I cut this using the larger die, and then I also put a smaller one in the middle to create sort of a frame element. And I am going to mount this directly to white cardstock. And I am putting this on with just double-sided tape and then some liquid adhesive around the stitched part. And this will get it nice and close and adhere to that white cardstock beneath, which will really let the detail and all of those small holes that are part of the die show through, and it'll be a great contrast of red and white. So I just put that adhesive all the way around, and then I am gluing it down. And of course I didn't quite get it straight, so once that's down, I'll just use my scissors to sort of trim off that excess over on the right hand side. This card, the finished card size is 5.5 by 5.5 inches. And it's a really great size to add that poinsettia and be able to do lots of layering. Now this panel itself, I am going to pop up with some extra dimension. And I find on these cards where I'm creating using just cardstock and dies, the dimension and adding the foam squares is really what finishes off the cards and gives them so much depth without having to use a lot of shading that you might do on a card where you're inking or doing a lot of stamping. Now the next die I'm working with, this is one of our new dies. This is the poinsettia cutout, and I love this. I just think this poinsettia is so pretty. Has the leaves all the way around it. All the tricky part of arranging where to put those leaves and everything is done. It's just built right into the die. Now I did cut it from green cardstock and also red, and from the red I'm going to trim off the leaves. So this way I can layer this flower right on top with lots of dimension. So I'm going to trim those off. Now I am sticking to some very traditional red and green color scheme on this card, but I also think this poinsettia would be so pretty if you did it in a white. You could also layer in some gold, so even like a white poinsettia with the leaves underneath being a gold, or using traditional colors but using glitter papers. That would be another way you could do this to give it even more elegance. Now for this layer here with the poinsettia, I am putting some foam squares on here, or some foam tape. Now this tape is just the Scotch foam tape that comes in the roll, and it's not very thick. So you'll see I'm using it several times here to build up the layers, but they really are not that high. So the finished card really would be easy to mail. So I'm just curling up the petals on this poinsettia. I love that that also is an element built into the die that you can curl those right up. And I'm going to glue the center portion directly down onto the card, just using some liquid adhesive, and then I will put that right on top of that base layer, and everything will line up perfectly. And so again, I put that adhesive on the center of the flower and then just around these outer edges. And down it will go. Now you could certainly stop here, but I wanted even more layers on this. So I'm going to grab another one of our poinsettia die sets. And this is the stitched poinsettia, and I'm going to use the smaller flower portion and also the leaves to add up and build even more dimension onto this panel. And I've cut this from that same red cardstock and also a bit of orange. And don't let that orange scare you. I find that putting in just a little bit of orange that is not too bright as a middle layer, it adds some extra color and depth without making it look like it's an orange poinsettia, but it's just enough contrast between all that red, just something different to catch the eye. I'm using my fingers to sort of curl up those petals, and you can see just a tiny little bit of that orange peeks through. You could also do that with a pink. I think that would be really pretty. If you don't like the orange, a pink would be really nice. And you can see how that dimension is just building up. I'm working here on just the placement for these leaves. I end up playing it around and rearranging it a few times until I'm really happy with that. I like the variety of how these leaves have that stitching, and the poinsettia has that stitching, but the sort of that base poinsettia has more of a die cut smooth line. And I think, again, it's those little details that without doing any inking on this and without doing any coloring or stamping, those details to the dies are really what give it a finished and very elegant look. So my next layer is with our pine branch creative die, and I've cut this from just a slightly brighter green. So we do have 3 different shades of green when you do look at the leaves and then also this pine branch. And this is a really handy die. It's easy to just sort of tear apart or cut apart and just stick here and there all around the edge to give some fullness. It also is such a classic Christmas image. I love the idea of having some pines mixed in here. And so I'll kind of just stick them in to get an idea for where I want them to be. And then I will go back and just put a little bit of liquid adhesive on the ends of those and slide them in and glue them down once I'm happy with the look and where they're all going to go. This would be a design or a card that you could definitely mass produce. You just sit and do a lot of cutting. You can do that in front of the TV, pick out your favorite show, or binge watch a little Netflix and do all your die cutting and then go back to assemble and really do it assembly line style. So once I had all of that arranged where I wanted it to be, I'm just going to grab 3 little self-adhesive pearls here to add to the center. I like how these tie into the other white elements on the card. And that is it. The card is complete. A beautiful sentiment on the inside would finish this off wonderfully. Here's a look, a close look at some of that dimension and the texture from the cardstock and the die cutting. And another look here at the finished card. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website and blog. And I will put a link to each of those for you down in the YouTube description box below. Thanks for watching.